Shoop. Good morning, everyone. You've got a question for the Minister for Lands Planning and Environment, Josh Burgoyne, member for Braitling. Get on to it. And a lot of you talking about the road through the gap, so that's where we're going to start with Josh Burgoyne this morning. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Brashy. Good morning to your listeners.
Now, let's talk about the shared path through the gap. Now, there's new signage up. Work happened on the weekend to really fix up those pavers, which were causing trouble and making it very uneven. A lot of people south of the gap unhappy with the road hold-ups, but work had to be done at some point on that path. What do you make of the decision to advise and maybe tell riders you cannot cycle through the gap, you've got to dismount and push your bike through? What's your thoughts as a cyclist?
I am a cyclist, Brashy, a very keen cyclist that rides through the gap multiple times, probably a month. What I will say is I want to thank the Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics, or Dolly as it's now known. We're still stuck in the old Dipple phase, Dolly, for the works that they did do on that pathway, because there were a couple of sections there where you could just about do a jump over the raised concrete. So that was really important. They've obviously done that. Yes, there were a few hold-ups over the weekend. I was someone that got caught there on my way to swimming lessons for the young girls, but let's be really clear here. In 2018, you've spoken about this morning, there was a Have Your Say. I took part in that Have Your Say in the Alice Plaza when I was but a mere electrician, Brashy. I said really clearly there, in my view, hasn't changed. Don't waste millions of dollars trying to improve a pathway when the entire carriageway, the entire highway needs to be fixed, and that
remains the issue.
That's still my view, Brashy, because we don't want to go about this half baked. If we were to then put a raised cycleway through the river, we'd just be clogging up that gap even more than it is, which then raises other issues in regards to flood mitigation. So I would like to say, I spoke to my department just the other day, Brashy. You're probably about to say, well, what are we going to do about it? Correct. We are now going... My department, I guess, is dealing with the Department of Logistics and Infrastructure to ensure that we can now have a plan going forward, take it to the feds and say, this is what we want to do with the gap. Are you willing to come to the table? And I saw Marion Scrimgeour on my flight back from Darwin the other day, spoke very briefly. We're all wanting to work together. We're all wanting to get in a circle and sing Kumbaya. We understand this is important, Brashy. And
Kumbaya is not going to stop a flood in the river. But can I just go back to the path? So it's not fit for purpose, let's be honest. So you're happy for people to have to push their bikes through it? Well, are you going to push your bike through?
I'll be really politically incorrect here, Brashy. I don't think anyone is going to push their bike through there. What I do when I see someone coming, obviously I make sure that that the road is clear and you give people a wide berth, because if you, for but a second, slightly veer one way or the other, you'll collect another cyclist coming back the other way. I have at times got off my bike when there are cars coming, and it's unsafe to ride two people through there. And that's the reality. You know, you always want to look out for your fellow cyclist or fellow pedestrians that are going through there. So I think it's just that case of do the right thing. The signs are there. And obviously, let's all make sure that we look after one another.
And what about the idea of putting a temporary matting, like we have it in the river near St Phillips, put a temporary matting so cyclists can be right off the road, they can cycle from, say, Palm Circuit through the gap and up. I know it'll get washed away in the next flow of the river.
It will, but it will be an interim fix, and I think my daughters and I love riding all the way out to the Telegraph Station.
Might look at that?
We call it the wobbly bridge going through the river, so, hey... Let's have a look at it, see how much it's going to cost again. We don't want to be throwing millions of dollars at this, but if it's a cheap option in the interim, that means people can safely ride through that. And as that Canberran cyclist mentioned this morning, it's a beautiful area to ride through. So maybe it could be a little bit of a tourism attraction. Take a selfie as you go through.
Hey, staying with that, I know I spoke with Marion Scrimgeour last week. She said she wants to sit down with you and Bill Yan to talk about options for flood mitigation. Is there a date? You said you saw Marion on the plane. Have you got a date to sit down and start discussing things?
Yeah, look, Brashy, I'll sing Kumbaya all I want, but let's be really clear. There's been a couple of promises that have been made by Marion Scrimgeour to write to Bill and I. They've never eventuated. So let's just be really clear.
You're waiting for the letter.
Oh, waiting for a couple of letters. But look, at the end of the day, more than happy, and it's really important for those in the public to know, we are all working together. We do talk. We do sit down. I think the frustration sometimes comes from, and this is no disrespect to Marion, it's about ensuring that the people that are making those decisions, the ministers at a federal level, are aware of the concerns. Bill has a very good relationship with Catherine King, the infrastructure minister, and obviously on these local issues, it's important that we're all pushing in the same direction. So that's really important.
One thing which people kept saying to me over the last 2 weeks, we spoke about insurance, we spoke about flood mitigation. People were saying the Taffy Pit Causeway and the Heavy Tree Causeway or Palm Circuit Causeway are part of the problem.
Yes.
They lead to drop of silt. They've seen trees start growing, so river red gums start growing south of them. You can see it, Taffy Pit. There's a forest there. You are the minister responsible for ARPA. Now, many of the trees on the Todd, river red gums, are sacred. What is the nature and what is the protections to the trees which are in the river channel clogging up flow at the moment? Can they be removed, or are they covered by an ARPA certificate?
Yeah, absolutely. So two things here, and those that have been long-term residents will remember, council used to remove sand out of the river at different periods of time. That was something they did themselves and did with their own machinery. What I'm looking at now, what I want to work with, and this is I literally just spoke to the department about this earlier on the week. So you need, in some instances, a permit to interfere with a waterway just to remove that sand. Obviously, in the past, there hasn't been any trees that have been impacted by that sand removal. And I think we really do need to look at how we can do that a bit more efficiently at Taffy Pit, at all the causeways, because it does build up. That's the reality. There's a lot more sand.
It's a dam.
It's a dam. And long-term residents, this is going back years and years, even before I was born, Brashy, talk about there being river banks, actual banks of the river that would be 1 or 2 metres deep. So we've obviously lost that, and we now have a more shallow river, which means less water can actually travel through it. So we need the increased volume of water to reduce the flooding risk, and now it's about working with everyone. As we always say, I have regular meetings with the council, and this will be something that I've asked the department to get in touch with council about, because if they used to do this, why they've stopped, and perhaps if for them it's a cost. Well, we actually have issues with sand here in Alice Springs. A lot of people may not realise. So maybe we could get in, put an FOI out. Who wants to come and collect some sand out of the river? Do it appropriately.
Need to take a lot of sand. Back to the issue of the trees, though. I mean, are all river red gums in the Todd River course, are they all covered by a sacred site certificate? Is that the case?
That isn't my understanding, and I spoke to someone just the other day in regards to this. There is a belief by some people that once they reach a certain height, they then can be considered. I think what's really important, obviously, to understand is that we need to mitigate flooding. We want to be able to work with traditional owners. ARPA are an excellent organisation who do that. There's been an incident, or not an incident, there's been a certificate more recently issued so that we could utilise a bore that's near the river. And that's what it's about, working with TO so they understand what's happening, and everyone lives in this town wants to make sure that their homes don't flood when there's a big flow. So that's what it's about, working with everyone to make sure we can get a good outcome. And I'll be really interested when I next speak with council. I'm sure Mr. Andrew Wismore and Mayor Hill are listening, is all about working together to say, hey, why did that sand, that, as you called it, the sediment build-up stop being removed? It might have been a cost. If it's the cost issue, maybe we could get a private contractor to come in, take the sand away, then they can sell that sand, because it is quite valuable.
Now, I was talking to Malandira McCarthy yesterday, and one texter came in and said, is it time to take the money for sealing the Santa Teresa Road off the Territory Government because no work's happened? Now, there was work done, I think, back in 2023 or 24, maybe 18 Ks of work done. I think it might be 40 Ks left to do. So what's the status? Is the rest of the Santa Teresa Road going to be sealed?
Drum roll, Brashy. I have it here today. We have just received the sacred site clearance. We're putting tenders out for the initial headworks that include water bore drilling, H3 pole relocation, and the first package for road construction is due to go out the end of January. Headworks will be started prior to this. So
how
there you go.
How many
Brashy.
Ks?
I don't have how many kilometres, Brashy. Goodness me, they're not providing me with enough information.
I think there may be 42 Ks left. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I do really want to be clear here. Obviously, again, we work with all the relevant stakeholders in this. The Central Land Council are a relevant stakeholder. They work with traditional owners. There's been a number of hold-ups in regards to this, but we're all really trying to work together so that we can actually get these really important bits of infrastructure up and going. And that Santa Teresa Road, it's been spoken about for what? Decades?
Rubbish. I mean, It is rubbish. Takes me to the Morini. What's the situation there? We've been talking, and I think money was made available. Was it 2022, 23 to do the Morini? We're still waiting. And I spoke to Grant Watkins yesterday from G'day Group. He was saying, I didn't think it would take this long. So what's the go there?
Yeah, look, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I don't have a drum roll on this one, unfortunately, Brashy. Still waiting on those sacred site clearances. And again, let's be really clear here. Like, as a government, we've been criticised all the time for not working with TOs, not working with Land Council, all the rest of it. We're trying to work here collaboratively to get a good outcome. Obviously, you don't just want to go ahead and push through a road where you don't have the relevant site clearances. So it's important we go through that process.
Got a time frame?
I don't, Brashy. I'm really sorry about that because, trust me, the Mereenie and Glen Helen are things that I'm working like you would not believe to rectify.
So you know my next question then.
Yes.
The water supply, we spoke to Grant Watkins. Again, they've got access to the bore, which is 18 kilometres west of town. Glen Helen cannot open without a secure water supply. There are site clearances, according to Grant Watkins, which still have to happen. He's saying we will not be open at Glen Helen until at least 2027. What's holding things up? What's happening?
Yeah, look, and this is a sensitive one, so I really dislike not being able to just tell everyone exactly what's happening. But
go ahead.
Let's say what I can. Right now, there is very clear. We've identified a bore 17, 18 kilometres away. We need to get the piped water from there, obviously, to Glen Helen. But it's not just about Glen Helen. There's a number of people in that area that need water. It is an issue. And we're now looking at how we can best utilise the funding that's available to us, both through federal government means and NTG means, to get that water there. Absolutely. I heard what you said the other day in regards to would we use Northern Territory government money to support a private entity. But this isn't about a private entity. This is about that whole region, and I think
so
everyone
is there
understands.
NTG money involved now? I mean, has that become part of the equation?
There will be a proposal put forward in regards to how we can resolve this, because there's a number of issues. When Glen Helen isn't open, there's thousands of people that aren't travelling out into the West Macdonald Ranges because it was one of those only places where you could stay overnight, and then everyone is impacted as a result of that. All those beautiful gorges, Ormiston, and all the other ones.
So what's the hold-up? What is actually stopping getting these clearances? Because where's your territory coordinator? Can he be of use here?
Yeah, Brushing, you can imagine how that would go down. I think what we
just asking, isn't that what he's supposed to do? What
we want to ensure, and I can definitely, this is something I speak to. I personally rang someone, a TO yesterday, to have a really good conversation about what the issues are. That's quite literally what I'm doing, because I speak to ARPA.
Will it be sorted?
They're having the conversation. It's a really difficult one, and that's so frustrating for me to say years on. But it's about making sure that traditional owners are happy, and once again, listening to their concerns, finding a way forward. I also spoke to, not Grant, I think it's Brad from the G'day group yesterday, just to really feel, is he committed to this project? They are. They are, which really fills me with hope.
Do you think it will be fixed? Do you think this will be done?
I believe that as long as we can continue to bring everyone to the table, we can find a way forward. And there are some really good options outside of Glen Helen as well that we're working to activate, which will be amazing for the West Macdonald Ranges.
Can I just talk about machete and knife crime? We saw the terrible incident in the food court at Yiperinia on Monday. We saw two off-duty police officers essentially chase this person off with a machete. But the question remains, how do young people who allege to have this machete, how do they get them? Do we need more regulation of things like knives and machetes in town? Because something's not working, and we still seem to have knife crime like this happening.
Yeah, look, what I will say is that obviously we've been seeing, or we had seen, elevated incidents in our town over a long period of time. We've done a mountain of work, Brash, and we've been absolutely ridiculed for the amount of changes we've made. We will continue to strengthen the laws so that these sorts of things don't occur regularly. That young person has now been taken into custody. That's really important. And with the improved restrictions on bail, I can't say what will happen, but obviously there's a court process now.
A very short time. Is there any appetite to clamp down on knives themselves?
What we want to ensure here is that the people that are using any item, because there are so many things out there, a brick that can be used as a weapon, we're taking those people off the street, and we're ensuring that the community is safe.
No greater regulation of knives themselves or machetes?
That's not being looked at right now, Brashy.
Josh Burgoyne, we've run out of time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.